Welcome back, guys, to the Bear and Scully Show with me, Sean Scullion, aka Scully. Old man, aka...
He had to forget who he was there for a minute.
because we've changed it up slightly. Old man, aka the Bear.
That's me.
Aidan, the face for radio behind the scenes, and today we are joined with Sammy Lupari.
Hello.
How are you?
Sammy, how you
Thank you
doing?
for having me.
Sammy, thanks for coming on. So, Sammy, we actually listened to a podcast you done recently, so we said we'd get you up. You're not too far away, so
No,
thank you very much for coming up. So, Sammy, like we do all the guests, we go to the very start and where you grew up and get a bit of background so we can start judging you straight from the off.
No pressure.
So, where are you from, Sammy?
Macrofelt, born, bred Macrofelt, grew up. Two parents lived. Well, my dad was from Macrofelt, my mum Donegal, and I met my dad working, but Macrofelt's where we resided, and that was it.
Tell me, the name Lupari is not one I would normally associate Macrofelt.
No, so ancestors would go back to Italy.
Yeah.
So traces back to Italy. Not that I can speak much Italian. I think I kind of died off the grandparents.
You swerved enough, but you know...
I still have the skin in that there, but my Italian would be rusty now, if you ask me.
What about your dad? Does he speak any of it? Or?
No, he doesn't. Yeah, so my granddad
I just think that
dad
would be
had like
cool. Standing dormants firing out a bit of Italian. Like you'll 100% be pulling like. Ciao, bello.
the hands come in sometimes. You think
Come on, put spaghetti.
I do love all the food as well. Can't complain.
Your Italian's pretty good there, Owen.
I would say mercy, but that's French.
It's a bit as good as mine.
And so you're Macrofelt man, and then Sammy, where'd you go to school, mate?
I went primary school. I went to Macrofelt Primary, and then moved on to the high school. Then Macrofelt High School.
I done a brief spell in school in Macrofelt, Sean, didn't I?
And then you get kicked out.
I went to the Rennie for a year.
One full year.
You're welcome,
You didn't even
Rennie.
get a full year.
They're lost.
They're not.
But so then, Sammy, you were there. What way did you get on when you were in school?
Not the best. I was a bit of a troublemaker. A short attention span, I think, was more than anything. But no, I just was always in the sun, mischief. I liked all the sports and that there. It wasn't really academic. It wasn't really me. So you were frustrated around school, racking and tearing. I reckon and tearing
And then
bit of mischief.
Did you join the army young?
I left school. I wanted to leave and join the army at 16, but my parents wouldn't sign the paperwork. So they kind of not forced me, but kind of steered me into going and getting a trade. So I left and started doing electricianing. So went to Tech in Ballymena and doing the electricianing, and then the recession started hitting in 2007. And I was like, right, what am I going to do? I turned 18, so it was literally the day after my 18th birthday. I applied online and sent it off. Didn't tell anybody. Nothing, just sent it off. And then the join instructions come through in the post, and it had Her Majesty's stamp on the top of it. So my ma thought it was a court summons or something like that. There. So she had it open. So I landed home from work, and my dad was sitting in there.
This is like a mommy thing from around here. Like there'll be like nothing if you're in trouble of opening your mail.
100%. So land home and then had to have that conversation with my dad, and I was like, well, look, there's nothing really much going on here. At that time I got laid off from the Spark, and I was working with my dad, and then I went on and got a job welding and fabricating, but it wasn't me. Adventure and thing, and I didn't know what was coming either. At least that was secure, and I got to go.
So there's always that thought in your head to go off and do it. We actually had previously Big Darn on, and he was talking about when he was young. And isn't it funny that younger ones that have that bit of I wouldn't say the mischief, but restless. There is certain children don't fit school, don't fit it. There's other ones in their class, and they're planning to go on and do things that are academic, and they're already aware that that's not what they want to do. I see new schemes now where they can go to doing engineering or stuff like that. But you always had that itch to go off, did you?
I did always wanted to join. I think my granddad died whenever I was quite young on my mum's side, and he was in the RAF, and there was always a picture of him and my granny on the wedding day, and he was in his the RAF outfit back in Whitehall. I always looked at it, and his dad was in the army as well, and I was just like, It interested me. And then you seen them obviously, like as a kid, they used to land out in the backfield in a helicopter, and you're just like, that's cool. I want to do that there. That's what I want to be whenever I grow up.
We used to run up. Do you ever remember the Chinooks?
Aye, they had to come in, and then the next thing, the army, they had been out with the guns and stuff, so we had lanced down the scope and stuff, and then, you know, the fucking camouflage.
Aye.
We were running around with tubes of this camouflage, us
Rubbing
cubs,
it around you.
brown stuff all over us.
I was the same. Like,
running
we
about the place.
lived in the outskirts, and it was just fields out beyond, and we were the exact same, running around with branches of trees, thinking we were the army.
You know, and like this is the country we live in and the divide we live in too, but I have to paint the picture too. Me and Sean grew up in a nationalist housing estate, right? So the army would have been landing down on the thing. Us innocent children over the thing. We were trying to actually remember. Do you remember one of the cubs run up onto the back gate of the Chinook? You know the way the door comes down the back, run up onto it, and they're going mad to get him off it, right? But like they're always dead. They're young lads. You know, when you look back at it, they were young lads, and they used to, as Sean says, used to give you the. It was like, I always remember the wee steel tube, like, and you did that there, or you were looking down. You could never see nothing. No. Never seen fuck all out of it, but. It's funny, it's a complete different time. Younger ones won't actually remember this, them landing and
like that's a young age, like, because after that, like, I turn 35 next month, so like I don't remember much of the troubles or anything like that, but I always remember them landing in that backfield out behind ours, and then.
But even the town's been closed down. Like we talked about this last week, and even the barriers, Cookstown was closed down at night. And certain roads has the big bollards up that you couldn't come up certain roads. And like, if you told that to my kids now, they'd be like, "What do you mean you weren't fit to come up and down the roads?"
But it's not such a good thing.
It is.
It's not a thing. Like you're look, we'll go on and cover this. You've been in the army, and you understand. You know, if you're landing in places in hostility, and maybe they don't want you there, but like the atmosphere, they're growing up, like they're getting to mix, they're getting to make friends, they're getting to do things that it wasn't. That was when we grew up. There was a different tension, there was a different idea, and I know you're saying that because we're 3 or 4 years older than you, so just caught the tail end, as you say, just memories of being young, that happening, the bollards down the town and stops and stuff like that. But then, see, even when you were joining, then was there still like a wee stigma, not a stigma, because it's like, this is the thing, and I've said this before, people find this weird. My granddad served 28 years for the Staffordshire Regiment, and it was before any real trouble and then he came back, and it was weird because he was called William. It never really fitted with no answer. William was 28 years. He was welcome to go wherever he wanted, but was there any of that? Was there any, sometimes, if back in this country, and hopefully we're moving away from this, but it used to be that you would have kept, things like that to yourself, say nothing, we'll see what was happening.
And it was very much like, before you come home, you had to go and sit in briefs, and it was saying, you're not allowed to go here, there, and it's like, not allowed to, one of the places I wasn't allowed to drink was the rugby club, so the really old boys, and you're like, I plan on playing rugby for them on Saturday, can I not go drink there? And that's the things you're being told. I think it's they're obviously being precautious as well, because they don't want anything to happen. But you hear other stories of people from Derry and stuff like that. They were heading home and they're getting pulled at the airport and moved away because there maybe was a security. This was way back, not as much now. But even my parents were in a mixed marriage and that growing up, and they come through the troubles in that mixed marriage as well. So I think even growing up, I had Protestant friends, Catholic. There was no set one, and it's almost as if you didn't belong in any community. You were just stuck in the middle, because you get the piss taken out of you in the Protestant community for having a Catholic dad, and the same in the Catholic for having a Protestant mum, and as if you didn't really belong anyway. So I think that was maybe one of the reasons why my mum and dad didn't want me going. I don't know, it's something I've never actually talked to them about. But these things go through your head, and I was like, but you know what? That's my life. I'm going to do it. If people don't like it and don't want to talk to me, it's your prerogative.
And you're 100% right. That was 07. Right? Was it it was 06, it was 02 Afghan started, was it?
Well, Iraq more than Afghan, and
Iraq,
2006, I think, well, 2000, Herrick 3. About 2005, maybe we went into Afghan.
So, maybe not, let's just take all of the political here, it's a small thing. Your parents, you've come home and says, I'm joining the army. and at the time
And
it was
that-
well publicised that there
It
was
was all over the
troops.
news. Like, that's what kept drawing me to it. And I was like, I want... Because obviously, it depends on how you portray the news or what news you're watching and that. But I was like, I want to go and help fight the war against terrorists. Because, like, there's... as you know, like, all the media and that, they would, like, it's scaremongering, so to speak, as well. Like, and you don't know what to believe. Like, even as a kid joining, you hadn't a clue what to believe. And unless you go out there and actually physically see it, then... Even then, like, I'm out there and you're doing the job, and you, like, as soldiers, whenever you're out there, you know you're doing right. Like, you're helping kids and you're getting kids to school and obviously fighting the Taliban. But, like, you don't know the bigger picture. You're just out there, you're looking after the man to the left, the man to the right to you. And
Well, just before we go, because we will ask you more about being out there and how you feel the political side. But before you go, I'm interested in this, and some people might be, maybe they're not, they're like, why do you are going? What's the detail in signing up? What's the steps? So, like, you know,
I done online, and that day I was off the computer and had the dial up things and all. So at that time, and I just filled in my thing and sent it off. And I say it was months, maybe 8 months. So they take all your details, go through security checks and all that before they actually get back to you to say where you can apply. And then next thing you got the thing through the post saying with all these details, and then you set up a date. And I went up to Coleraine recruitment office saying. And you go up, you sit down, you have a talk, and then you do like a test, barb test, I think it was called. So it's just
that's
you
the wee computer thing.
And you go through it and see what score you get, and it tells you what you can join.
I done that one time in Mahan Barracks. It was like a community thing, and it's like an IQ test. It's not. It's a similar.
You're gonna tell me that you get 100 out of 100 or some shit? What?
Broke the computer.
I knew there's a reason why he was gonna go into detail in this.
But because I was interested in that, and I didn't know whether they still did that or
I don't know whether they still do that or not. But back then, like whenever I done it, that's what it was. And then you sit down and talk, and you've a load of options. But my options were quite tight. I wanted to join the engineers, so I was kind of going for it. And then
you're looking the money.
No, it wasn't even that. I thought, I can go out,
Yeah.
I get a trade and all, and then still do the fighting. But whenever you sit down, like, you don't get to do that. And I was like, right, well, I want to be an infantry soldier. Like, you want to go out and you want to, if you're going to be a soldier, you know what I mean? Rather than going out to build and do things.
Just as you're saying that, if you decided to go down the engineer, the higher education side of things, they would have required a certain level of like GCSE and.
No, but I had that because I had to do it for the electrician and
Yes,
anyway. So like that was one thing. I was like, I'll get my grades anyway, so I've always something to fall back on. So it wasn't as if it just sacked school off and left. So I had grades and I could have done it, but.
Because that does give you a different path afterwards.
It does.
When you're enrolling, it's like this is what you could go on and be an engineer pilot and getting 100 when, you know, there's certain different ones, but just so that people. But you wanted.
I wanted
there's
to
no
be on the front
if they're
line,
putting you for that, you're not seeing nothing.
No. Because you're going to be like behind everything, building infrastructure and stuff like that there. And I was like, no, if I'm joining, I want to be on.
So what regiment then did you join?
I joined the Irish Guards. So I think I was down to the recruiter. I went to cadets whenever I was younger as well, and it was the Royal Irish. So, but like I hadn't really a clue. At one point, I think the day I was taking my oath of allegiance, one of the boys came in, he's like, "Oh, what are you joining?" I'm like, "The Royal Irish Guards." And they're like, "No, it's here, the Royal Irish or the Irish Guards." Like I really didn't have a clue. I just knew you wanted to join the army, and you get your eyes open there whenever you get in. So I joined the Irish Guards. That's the ones they do the ceremonials, they stand outside Buckingham Palace and all of that.
So because there's a very like, and I don't know if this is to say like a Ponzi side of it, but there's actually a serious side because the guards do like the if you see the tours that they have done, like they be in.
They do the exact same tours, but just whenever you're maybe off, you go on ceremonial. You could be on that for 2 years, and that's all you're doing for 2 years, and then you go back, like flip. You're doing it and doing the exercise. You keep training, and then maybe you flip. You start preparing then to go out to wherever you're planning and go.
What was the training like? Where did you train? Did you train here or over
ITC Catterick I went to then, so that was the first thing. Landed down, I had like highlights in my hair and all that. So you get off this bus and like you get first day you're there, you're taken down, your head shaved, everybody's put in the same footpath, and then you're going down, you're just lifting bags of stuff and getting a tracksuit that was like wearing paper, and then you hit the ground hard. Like the first 6 weeks was just. They were breaking you down. It was just like early morning thrashings, this thrashing, press up position. You couldn't really you didn't have time to scratch yourself, never mind doing anything else.
And were you like, would you have been a cocky cub, or would you know, or
Oh, not whenever I got there.
I would, you know what I
18
mean?
years
Did
of
you go in
age,
with a
standing
bravado
like
and
a
then next
6 foot.
thing just
You do, but I think even just like because you're going yourself, there was nobody else there with you, and you just, I don't know, you're put in your place like over them 6 weeks. It's
were they
different.
hard? Were they?
They were hard, but you know, you're there with the lads and you have a bit of crack and thing and like taking a piss and doing that. But sometimes that got you in trouble, got you another thrashing. But I think older ones seem to struggle more than the younger ones. The younger ones just took it as it come and got on with it. Whereas like lads maybe were joining 30 years of age, some of them. And I think it was a wee bit harder then because they weren't in that wee crack as if you're like, we weren't long out of school. It was still the same, that messing about, same as you were in school. So, and that got you through it. And it was like anything through you were fit to do, and you get fitter from it, and free fizz as they used to call it.
So then, is it 6 weeks training?
No, so 6 weeks is like your stage 1, and then after that, then you go in. So that's like everybody does that. It's just basic soldiering, and then after that, then you go into your kind of trade. So mine was infantry. We just kind of done it, but on a more in-depth level.
And how long do you train there? That's 12 weeks then, is it?
I'm trying to think. 6 weeks. Maybe about 16 weeks, I think you're in training up in ITC.
And then you get the big ceremony of the passing out, isn't it?
Passing out parade then, and then you're sent to your battalion.
So, like, everyone's down then, and you put the hard yard. The amount of ones we were speaking the thing, he was like, that period alone, them couple of months, fairly changed them.
Oh, it does. Well, that's what it's designed to do, is to see where you're at here. Because I think they open a window at about 8 week 8 in training, where you have like a week. It was like, right, if you don't want to be in the army, you're gone. But if you stay after 8 weeks, that's you, then you're in for 4 years. And like, I think we started with about 40 people in our platoon. And out of the originals, maybe 30 people passed out, but originals, there was only about 16, 17 that actually made it from that. Other ones back squatted for injuries or just sacked it. Or some of them, like one lad, we were near the end of passing out, and he went and he just done drugs at the weekend off and come in and told them just to get kicked out, like, because he's like, I've had enough. There's some head cases, like you meet some mad people.
I'm just high here.
That's basically come in like, oh, I've done drugs at the weekend. And they're kind of like, no, you didn't. He's like, no, I did. And then, like, because they've said it, like, they have to drug test him. Yeah. But he done it on purpose. That was his idea. They get out.
And because we actually had Nando, who was in the Royal Marine Commandos, and he went in and said, I'm homophobic.
He
says back then, I'm homophobic. And because he goes, I was going to go and say I was gay, and it used to, up until when he was in it, that actually was, you would have got this thing. But then he just went in and says, I'm homophobic. And they're like,
all I got
we need to get rid of you.
Yeah.
But, so, like, you got through all that, and then there'd have to, for me, I would just think, for me, if I'd done all the training and passed out, I'd be like, right, I'm ready to go. If I've invested, was it like that?
And then you get sent to your battalion, and that's what I was saying about the Queen's Guard. I landed down, and you think you're going to be doing all this soldier, and just like at a bigger level, obviously with a battalion. And I landed into Windsor. We just got moved to Windsor. And we were straight in ceremonial. And I was like, what is this? So, like, stand outside Windsor Castle, early morning buses in to go in Buckingham Palace. And it was just all drill orientated. Whenever you get out in the back post of Windsor, because that's where the Queen used to reside, and she'd come out with her corgis and a ball and one of the sticks, and she'd be throwing it down right in front of you. And you're there, like, up, you're sweating, like, don't speak to me. And then, as part of the battalion, then you have, like, a colonel-in-chief. And the colonel-in-chief was Princess Diane to begin with, and then after that, then Prince William and Kate Middleton took over, and then whenever I went to the parachute
chief of the
Irish Guards,
right? Okay,
and then whenever I was in the parachute regiment, King Charles was the colonel-in-chief of it, so he gave me my Afghan medal, King Charles now.
Like it would have been a surreal feeling. You're standing there as the Queen playing my ball. Like,
you're pure like, oh, please don't, because you don't know.
When you're in Windsor, are you in the bear?
The big bear skins.
So you're just standing.
Stand still there. You march up and down, like, but you're right there 2 hours, and that's 2 hours standing.
Tell me, did you ever have to do the big fall? Straight in your face.
No, I didn't. Funny, I keep
Pepe is
posting
dead.
something up on the St. Patrick's Day. I think it was the first one Kate and William actually were like the Colonel-in-Chief were. And a few of the lads, like Paddy's Day in Irish Guards, it said you start drinking the day before and you just carry on through. And there was me and 3 lads pulled an all-nighter, or me and 2 other lads, and then 2 lads spanked in, and I was only one. And like, there's a picture of him where he's just lying like flat out. But no, I never had to do it.
But one of them KO'd.
I like the 2 of them did. And both of them got charged, and I was all right. But there were only 3 of us that pulled an all-nighter that night.
Oh, Jesus.
But I was all right. I managed to stay upright.
They seem to have taken off recently, like, because people are now becoming obsessed with the ceremonial aspect of the Guard. And you see now on TikToks and all, they're like, they're like trying to get in the road and they don't really. But there is an undercurrent to that is actually a very serious, like, I know, look, listen, in a modern age, like, the royal family is not what it was, but it's still got that, the undercurrent of that is to protect the king or the queen at the time. The army, that's what an army was built around, to protect his country, i.e. the king and queen. But like you see them there trying to stop them or stand in the way and all, and I just love when they get fucking run over. Just like you see, like, and I'm not being to say racist, but like, say if you see like a Japanese, Chinese, and they're trying to be smart, and the next thing you just fucking bust them out of the road. But like, so, but tell me this, and I don't mean this in the thing. That's great, no. But to you, was that? Was that being a soldier like that?
I hated it.
I didn't get from what you were saying why you wanted to join like that. Just to me would have been like.
But like, I didn't really know until halfway through training that this was what I was joining. As I said, like, I hadn't a clue at the start.
You could have been going anywhere.
I literally could have been going anywhere. And like, but some people love that. Like, I'm glad to say I've done it. Like, I've done a Queen's Jubilee parade, which like we've done a Fleur de Jour, on it was called, and it was like the only second time in history that it was ever been done. This parade, like, we fired like blank rounds and the forecourt of Buckingham Palace, and I'm glad I could say I'd done it, but I hated it.
Are you now, the amount of ones we speak to, are you now, you're prouder of that when you look back, but at the time you don't actually, the amount of ones like, now you're saying that was a moment in time, and you don't know if that'll ever happen again, the way things are, so, like, looking back on that, do you get to enjoy that more now than
I
you did
think
when you were
so,
doing it?
because like, see, for that parade, like, that's 6 weeks every day, Monday to Friday, you're on the drill square training for that day, and I was just like, what am I doing?
I know, that would grind. After a while, like, I'd be standing the heat.
Some people loved it, like, and that's whenever I would start then you're drinking and carrying on and getting in trouble. Like, I wasn't a camp soldier. Like, it just wasn't up me.
But funny, and not the talking on, but Darren says like there was a culture of it there. Like,
but it was easy. You could get up in the morning and do your job. So why not? And that's what everybody was. Like, everybody was in camp. I lived in a 3-man bedroom, and nearly out of our company lines, it was like the drinking room. We had a tall fridge, and it was stacked with beer, and it was never dropped. You just like, what do you call it, 1 tin in, 1 tin out, and you could have been drinking for weeks.
Okay, and like then, but you then obviously you got called to go for a tour. Then was that your first time abroad?
So it wasn't. I was like, right, what can I do? And then the guards have a platoon in 3-para.
Yes.
So the guards parachute platoon. And I was like, right, so it kind of come up. They were folding because they didn't have the number. So there was a big push. And my sergeant major at the time, he was ex-guards para. So obviously he wanted loads from the company. So I volunteered to go for it. And at that point, like, I think I had about 8 months of drinking solid under me. And so I was like, right, I'm going to have to get fit because it was a fitness thing to pass. So I volunteered to go for it, and we had 3 weeks of like 2 fizz sessions a day. So it got me off, and that was the biggest bonus. It got me off doing all that stuff I didn't like. And then you went off, and they were hard hitting fizz sessions, like running with weight in your back for miles, like maybe 10 mile, and then in the gym for a circuit in the afternoon. And that was for 3 weeks build up. So again, you had to pass that there then to get on to the actual course. And then I think it was like 20 of us went up on the actual course. So went back to Catterick. And it's P Company, so it's run by the Parachute Regiment, and you go for it. There's like an R3 week beat up in it, where they just hammer you down. It's like runaways, you're just chasing PTIs, they're like swapping over, and people's chasing them, you're getting hammered up and downhill. So it breaks you right down, to the point, like, I got the test week, I had stress fractures and machines, But it was just like, no, I don't want to go back to that. And they were like, oh, well, you could jump off because you had to do a steeplechase. It was the day before the steeplechase I got told the stress fracture is a machine. And they're like, if you jump off and you could snap your leg, I said, well, so be it. If I don't, then I might get through it. Because it was all right. Once they warm up, they're not too bad. But at the start, like you were limping up to the start line. And as soon as you've done the warm up, you're all right. And away you go. And then you do test week. And it's just, you've set tests like a 10 miler, a 2 miler, a mile and a half. And then you finish with a milling where you like stand with gloves on, head to head, and just go for it.
You don't know what day the milling is, but do you?
No, well, you have a fair idea when it's roughed out. So, but just before it, we done like a stretcher race. So there's like 12 people on this big stretcher, and you're running with a stretcher, and like that, you're hanging out the end of it, and you literally they just march you down in the gym after that. They pair you off with somebody, just stand there toe to toe with these boys you've been through all the course with. Like stand there toe to toe, roaring and shouting at each other, and then you go in and
lump the head of each other.
Lump the head of each other, and then that's the course is over. And
How'd you get on?
I passed.
He didn't mean that. He meant, did you?
Well, I actually got the officer that got the best. What do you go? He got the top student. Like he was fit, so I could put against him. And I remember standing in front. I was like, just get the first punch, and he hit me, and my nose just went, and then I just went and just I tore in. But I ended up then getting selected the mill again. So I had 2 fights to do. So I ended up getting in and getting some Fijian. That was a good old scrap.
Because
their boys are hard.
Like they're actually.
I had a fair few fights coming through school and stuff, so I was well immune to it.
Jesus, but it actually we were discussing it is like how much longer can that sort of thing in this soft day and age like be allowed to happen? Like just go and chop the head of each other. Like
it's all like. You're there, you got a gum shield and you got gloves, you've one of them helmets on, but it's a test.
Actually, that's taken away from it.
It's the test that you think, like, because people come in their boxers and stuff like that, but if they start boxing and ducking and weaving, they're like, no, off you go. Like, you end up, you get pulled and you're like, you have to just stand there and it's fist up and you punch, you're not allowed to block, not allowed to do nothing, it's just... That's it, so your face is in the middle.
I don't know.
The idea of it is like, if you're going to just stand up, like and be counting, whenever the rounds are coming in that day. So that's kind of what it's testing.
But like it's more as we're getting on now. Obviously, there's more of a mixed. But there's more women and there's more ones coming through. And that's not saying that some of these women knock the fuck clean out of me. But what I mean is like, what happens if you get paired up? Do you just fucking nail them? Like
normally, like P company, the women don't get that far. If you end up in a course with a woman on it. You need to be fit. You need to be fitter than her because they'll keep going and they break.
And she'll probably not go fucking eat.
There's like a story recently of there was a girl in P company now, and basically the man got told there was like if anybody comes behind her is off the course on the mile and a half is like the first run you done, and apparently in the start line some boy just went boom chinder. So he's like I was never gonna beat it and run off.
He look. Listen, I would have just said to him, "You're through. You're through." If you're willing to do that, if you're willing to take the hit and just lay her, I love. But like you have to say, right? If war comes around, you want that guy there, like because if he's willing to burst her on the line. But you know what? And now we're going to get hate for me saying this, but this is just me being me. But like, all joking aside, if she's that fit and she's there, I'd be fucking worried that I get drawn to get her in the mountain because. My ego could not handle the kicking I get. I would not go home like I'd be like I took drugs at the weekend. I'm on drugs now. But so you'd obviously then you were in the power. So what about? Tell me this: the jumping out of place. They don't do that here, do they? Do you do it abroad or you do it
No, you do it here. So we passed that. I think we had a couple of weeks. Months
time to tell me your
out. Do you know what? You break it. It's that kind of parachute. And like obviously whenever you get onto the Pathfinders, you do a different type. But like meat bomb and you're just strapped to the plane, you're on a static line, you throw yourself out. But you go down till Bryce Norton to do it. And like you're jumping out of a caravan basically with wings at the start and then you move on to the C-130. You're like Bergen and that strapped to you and you just jump out and wherever the wind takes you, that's where you go and get tight for the landing and hit the deck. People break their legs and all doing that. Luckily, touch wood, nothing never happened to me.
Because you do come down hard, like.
Oh, it's not like, especially if the wind's up, then you're coming in, I don't know, it's hard to know, like 15 knots maybe, and you're hitting the ground like a sack of potatoes.
Did you ever do a parachute jump?
No, I didn't. Look, listen, I'm going to be honest, completely honest with you, right? I would say I'm ballsy enough in things and adrenaline, and if there was something wrong with the plane, I reckon I could summon the courage to get out of it. I ain't getting out of anything that's fucking flying lovely. You know, it just doesn't seem.
I done three.
I don't think that's
I've
exactly
over 300.
Put your dick away, Sean. Put your dick away.
Well, I wasn't in the army at the time.
I'm 3 into my 300.
It's expensive though. Like if you're doing it outside, that's expensive.
Yeah.
But 300 jumps like that. So like, and do you actually keep a wee like?
Aye, so I have a logbook and the thing, and then you get different licenses. So like after 200, you're a C license, so you can start like jumping with a camera and stuff like that.
You can jump and like Sean was jumping my GoPro back then.
No, there was a boy video me.
So like that boy video in you, I could have done it.
Aye,
because it obviously you need to like there's a massive amount. But did it ever get like after a while you're like, I know bar, there's no problem with this?
The jumping.
Aye.
But then to say this is whenever you get complacent, there's things that happens. But it was a way to get into work. That's
Well,
the way
tell
it
me,
ended up.
right, first time, did you break it?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
And literally just like you're still only what, 19, 20?
It's about 10 years ago now. I about 24, 25.
So you were in quite a while then. You were in from
13 years I done now before I got out.
So like then the part like, but there's bound to be a nice part like because there's this prestige about the powers. They're a hardened core. You know, there's the steps in the army, and you're seen a bit different. And I don't mean am I right in saying that? People would look at you differently and be like, you know, he's come through you know.
You've done that hard course, and
Because
everybody that's there has done that hard course. So you it's a big brotherhood. But even then, like you're landing over, and you like we're a guards para, so we're like hats they would call, because like the paras are the only ones that pass out with the beret on.
Yeah.
So and they call everybody else hats because they wear these like a forage cap or a bearskin or whatever it is passing out. So you get called a hat, and you have to kind of earn your respect as well whenever you get there. So you can't lift your foot off the gas. You need to be the fittest in the company, the fittest in the platoon, and you just like our platoon sergeant at the time, like he had us. We were doing extra fizz over the top of the company fizz and stuff just to make sure they didn't have anything on us, and you had to prove yourself. And it wasn't really until Afghan that you actually got to do it and stand up, and then they kind of start accepting you for being it.
Because there's a different level of respect then. Because and
it's
isn't it funny? Like they look at you and you're like, you're only like half of the job, like, and you know,
because they see like you didn't do your depot, what they call it, which is their training. Because obviously their training, it's more fizz orientated than what the guards would have been doing drill. They would have been doing fizz. So then obviously you go through that selection the course, the P company, and then you get there, but you still have a bit of respect there, like, and you're treated like muck whenever you first get there. It's like starting all over again, basically.
But see, when obviously then you don't get like do you get an hour passing out ceremony then when you're
well on that there, so you go down at the end of it and you stand. You're wearing like a green hat thing. It's made out of a scarf. While you're on P company, and then they come with your beret and present your beret, or if you feel, you feel. So they call out your name and you come to attention. You shout sir, and then they'll tell you pass or fail. So they say pass, you shout sir back and stand at ease. Whereas like if you fail, you turn to the right, march out, face away from the parade, and that's it. You're left there to the end of the parade.
Jesus.
Imagine they go,
see whenever they call your name,
sir, fail. Fuck you.
That's what it's like, because they call your name, you haven't a clue where you passed or not, because it's all done like a point system and stuff like that there, and they call you, you can have a fair idea, but if they don't like you and you don't meet like
they can just bin you like.
Like if you're like being a bit assy or cocky or whatever, they just see you as a bit of you don't fit the airborne brotherhood. They'll fail you no matter how fit you are. They'll just, you sir, fail, and away you go. And I think the person before me or two before me, you got to fail, and he's like, oh shit, you're breaking it, and then they call the name and you get to pass. And I was probably as proud of that than I was of passing out, to be honest, because that was a lot harder, like, and you put your body through some pain to get there.
Yeah, that's mad, isn't it? You could break your leg and you're like, fuck it, I'm going for it, like I've come this far. And then
it's better than going and drill.
But then, so when you're now in that para, the Queen's para, do you still go back to ceremonial?
No. So whenever you're there, it's a 2-year posting, but I think I done 3 in it. And normally, like, people were there, just kind of hung on. There was lads whenever I got there, been there 6-7 years. But whenever I got there, because it was the whole thing, and people don't come back, because normally most people transfer and go on and be in the parachute regiment. They set up a thing. So I was on my Lance Corporal's course with the parachute regiment, and I come off final action. You have no phone or nothing, so I come off final action the Thursday and to a message going, "You're back in the guards on the Monday." I was like, fuck. And that was like my world come down top me. You're just getting in, you've come back from Afghan with all the lads you served out there with, and that brotherhood's kind of, you feel as if you belong a wee bit more. Next thing you're being shipped off back to the guards, the lad you haven't seen in 3 years.
That it's weird. That is there's in certain ways, like you become a part of something, and then it's so disjointed. You just be by.
Yeah.
So then, when did you get the call that you're going off to Afghanistan?
So whenever I got the 3-par, we were already pretty much working towards it. So like one of the first things I done was out to Kenya, where you do like the whole battalion, brigades out there, and you're doing like a mass exercise of kind of what way things are going to work while you're out in Afghanistan, and it's all geared toward that, all the training. So that was a build-up bank. End of 2009, I went to 3-par, and then September 2010, I went to Afghan. So all of that time was just building, ready for it. So you're constantly doing all the soldier and all the stuff I like to do.
So you're building this in your head, you're watching the media, you're talking to guys that have come back, and what sort of mental picture had you built of what you were going to? Were you aware of what part you were going to, or what you were going to be doing? Or
originally, we were being sent to Sangin, which at the time was massive on the IED front.
Yeah.
So a lot of our training was like kind of around it. So like Valen lessons and stuff like that, like trying to figure out, find them and what you do and how to mark them and all. And then about a month or 2 months before the tour, then we could change, and we were going to Nari Alley of Helmand Province, which was a wee bit less, more ID threat, more gunfighting, which obviously, more as a soldier, it was like a happy day, rather than just going out and trying to watch who you were staffing. So the Americans ended up taking over the Sangin thing. They took it back, but you're just going through the training, and you're like, right, you were obviously, whenever somebody had been out there, they've experienced it, you were hanging on every word they said, right, he's saying I need to do this, I need to do that. And you're just concentrating to make sure you're best prepared for whenever you get there.
And you end up in the Helmand Province?
Yeah, we were in Helmand Province, Nari Alley North it was called.
And so you hit there, what was it like then? What was tell me this, but now we've seen, like, this is the problem. And this is a massive, massive problem, especially with wars and propaganda. We only know what we've seen, and that is half bullshit too. So, like, when you were there, was it what you thought it was going to be? Was it what was portrayed it was going to be? Or was it different? Was there, did you think it was going to be all-out action and there wasn't? Or was there all-out action and you weren't told there was going to be? Or
So, whenever we first landed, so we were in the main base, and again, you do RSOI, a bit of acclimatization and that, and then you're kind of starting to get the intel of your area and stuff, so you're starting to kind of build a picture, but you can build a picture all you want until you get in the ground, then you actually realise what you're doing, and you're right there, it was mud huts and stuff like that. That's what we lived in, basically a house made of mud, where like they'd been taken over or bought off a farmer or whatever, and that's where I spent my first 4 months, was in that, like washing myself in the well and stuff like that. It was like, even just on the patrol out to it, because you'd done all these Valen lessons, every wee bit of dirt that it was like displaced, you were pure flapping. But by the end of the tour, you were kind of, oh look, there's something over there, we'll avoid that, or no, I can see a wire there, we'll call in the people to clear it and stuff like that. There, it's just, you kind of built it as you went along.
Were IEDs massive out there? Was that a big attack?
They were big, but fortunately in our area they weren't too bad at the start. But then obviously whenever they started, because whenever you got there, you couldn't have went north of our patrol base. So the ones that were there before us, the battalion was there before us, they like had an unwritten agreement of some sort, like they'll not go north and the Taliban will not come south. Whereas like as soon as we got there, day one, we were heading north, and we come out the checkpoint, and it wasn't here to the car park that we were getting shot at and kind of pushed back. That was it then.
There is a perverse thing in me, and this is actually a thing, because I like to hear about the action, and I don't know why that is, because like this is real life shit. This isn't a movie or a thing, but when you were there and you're just there's a baptism of fire there. Then if you're going out and you're getting fired upon, you
don't know what way you're going to react. Like, you've never been on, as they would say, a two-way range. So The first day we kind of went out and there was like an open space, you kind of moving across the field. And I think it was on Always Stay With Me. And you have an icon, so you kind of know it's coming because we're listening to them as they're using their radios. We have an interpreter and they're kind of saying, right, get into position. And the next thing, an RPG got fired and like it exploded just over our... Luckily, I went high and missed. And you learned the Taliban like to be high in that whenever they're doing the fighting. So on our luck. So that was the first thing that exploded over our head, and then gunfire lit up, and obviously, and then you fight or flight, like, and I fought.
Aye, but that's what I was going to say to you. Like, we talk about putting yourself in positions where you have to respond, or your thing you've trained, like, but there must actually be a niggling doubt in your mind before you ever go into this. You're like, I better not fucking freeze up. Like, I better.
There is that there, and I've seen people like big hard men and that, and the freeze. But you don't know how everybody reacts, and like it doesn't mean he's any more manly or less manly.
Just wired different.
That's it.
Was there ever a point that you were under fire and you were like, "Fuck, shit's got"?
No, I was like, and if you ask anybody, I was the boy they were probably thinking he needs to fucking calm down, because as soon as it happened, I was very much like, I had the machine gun, so it was my job to suppress the enemy and to allow the other ones to get into position to start PID, and so. Like, as soon as it happened, my gun was probably the first one going, and I just got, and away I went, like, and I was...
Fucking love it! I'll let that bitch up!
I 21 whenever I was out there, like, I had no kids, and funny, I was with my missus all the way, I got with her about 3 months before I went to the army, and I was with her the whole way through, and remember, we were sitting in the office just before we went on our 6-week leave, and the platoon commander kind of said, like, have a good look around here, lads, because some of us might not make it back, like, and that's the reality. Just kind of putting it into perspective of what was going to happen, and that's whenever it kind of really sunk in. You're like, fuck, what am I going out here to? Like, and like they had been out there and been there and done it, so to speak, and I come home and finish with her, like, cruel to be kind type thing. Obviously, looking back now, it was a bit of a silly thing to do, because like it wrecked her. Like, we had been together for 3 years, and I just like, I don't love you anymore. But that was to be cruel to be kind type thing. And away you go. So because you don't, like, I hadn't a clue what to expect or what was going to be happening. And
I would love to have seen this man swinging off a fucking machine gun. And like, tell me this here. So then
I got a few videos. I'll show you after.
That's the shit I want to see. They're like, what sort of fucking... I grew up watching too much Rambo. But then you're out there, like, there'll be some adrenaline dump in that, like, and look, there's no point sugarcoating it, because I can see it in you know, you love that side of it where you were actually doing something that you've been trained and allowed then to do, like,
and this is like, you were out there, you weren't allowed to fire on them until they opened up a you.
I was going to say that as rules and gate.
So like, there was times we were being sent up a road to draw, so we had like kind of got in contact, and there was like 2 companies of us, and they're like, right, 6 platoon, whatever our calls. So we had to get up and walk up a road to draw the fire, so then this other team could see where it was coming from to hit them. And
fuck, I would have sent the other team. I ain't being the worm on that hook, boy.
But you get up and done it, and that was it then. And that was a long day. I was near the start where I was saying, like, they had done written agreement. I say 8-9 hours, and it was just constant back forward. So like the other multiple were going, and then we were going. And
what sort of machine gun then was it that you were using?
The GPMG.
It's a big fucker.
It's heavy. You carry 1,000 rounds with you as well, so the weight. I think all up weight, like by the time you take a body armour and all, I was with 13 stone whenever I was out there. I was probably carrying 12 stone of weight on top of that there. Like,
in that heat?
But you got used to it.
Fucking hell.
But hey, look, we're having a bit of a laugh and a joke about it, but did you ever lose any of your mates whenever you were out there?
Not in my multiple.
Yeah.
We were lucky that way. So, but obviously news was coming in from other places that people were dying, and there was like a time where we had a multiple attached to us. We had just moved, and obviously whenever you move, we had moved about 1.5 kilometers up north and set up another new compound. So we got another multiple in to help to kind of draw that fighting back again, and to calm it down. Because once you kind of fought and pushed them back, that was it. You didn't really see them. You had to push further than that again. So that gave us a buffer. And like, they had left, I would say, 3 or 4 days, and then the 2 lads, you're sitting. We actually like got a sheep and a chicken and that, and cut it up and barbecued it and all that there, and They were just sitting having a crack and a laugh at them, and then they got moved on because they were like the ops company. They got moved on to another place saying where it was tasty, and 2 days later you get a message back saying the two of them had been hit with one sniper round went through the throat of one and hit the eye of another, or through the eye of one and hit the throat of the other. Jesus. 2 of them dead just like that. Fuck. And it was like 2 days ago you were sitting.
But that's the reality of it.
That's the reality of it.
You know,
exactly.
the reality of it is you're going out there and to you it's, look, this is what I'm here for. To you, it could have been, this is a bit of crack. And you know, there's good stories that you had, even, you know.
Even when I was, like, I wasn't a bit of crack. I could
no, I know that. But do you know what I mean? You're out there to do what you had to do. Yeah. But then you get them stories come back saying, look, there's 2 lads that you were sitting with having a feed, and now they're dead.
But tell me, Sammy, did you have to steel yourself from that? Like, if you're in that, like a self-preservation style, like, did you have to like try and shut that off a wee bit because
you almost do. You just kind of like, right. Obviously, you had a fact sheet and you think about it, not there. But at that time, you were just, as soon as you were kind of told and you were sat down and told, everybody kind of, Jesus, right. Next thing you're getting orders for your next thing, and away you go.
You're just in it.
You're just in it. That's it. Yeah, and you can't take the eye of the ball, because you take the eye of the ball, then somebody else is going to get hurt. So you just had to keep.
It's so hard to actually process that, because like when you say it out like this, and if you think it out and you talk it out, it's actually mental. It's actually mad but like you're right. You're in a war zone. Your state of mind is like, right, fuck, Jesus, good lads, and then it's just like, right, what's my next job? But that's almost half the fucking problem, because none of that's being processed, none of that's being taken on. You're just moving on like a right. I'll box that away. Right. What's my next?
I think maybe a day or 2 after that, then there's a padre and that comes out and says a few prayers with you and stuff like that there. And like at that time, you were almost over. Well, not over, because I think it hits you more whenever you get back and you're out of that day, because you're thinking about, right, this make sure it don't happen to anybody else. I'm gonna, if things hit the fan, I need to be doing everything I can to make sure it's not going to happen to any of the rest of that.
Mm-hmm. And like, I know 21 is like, or you're older than 21, you're 24, did you say, or something? Or
no, it was a 21 when I was out there.
You're 21 when you're out there. Like, you would have been alright but mature than a 21-year-old, so I'm not putting that in the same context, because when you go through that and what you trained and you know, you've been away from home, and it would fully steal you too, but still at the bottom of all of this is a 21-year-old with a massive machine gun fucking trying to push people back. Well, friends, like, we were joking and we were thinking, and we were sort of just doing it, you know, but like the reality of it is, and that is war. Young lads, like young fucking lads out, and like that's hard to
I wasn't even young. It's like one of the lads in our company, he had to wait behind 4 days till he turned 18 before he could get in the plane to come out. Baby face ninja, he ended up in a paper write-up on that type. He turned 18. He had to wait, like, fly out a couple of days later. He had to wait his 18th birthday.
You weren't the cub of the,
the thing? I was probably more one of the older ones. Like, well, not the older one, because you had, like, the higher ranks. But, like, as far as Toms go, like, the privates, I was probably one of the oldest.
Do you think now that you're older and you've been through that end of it, do you think, like, that age, they're too young? Like, you're too young at that age? Do you know, an 18-year-old standing beside you, you were 21 at that time. Do you think that 18-year-old, he was too young at that time to come through that?
I don't know. You get the training.
Because you did.
I think certain people, like, it all depends. I think for somebody to join the army, they have that thing about them anyway, and to not just to join, but to get through the training and through everything and get out there. Like, that just takes a lot. So you have that thing in you anyway, I think. So it's a certain type of people. Like, not, you couldn't pull an 18-year-old off the street. Let's go, we're going to war. You know what I mean?
Wouldn't do anything now. I'd be worried about something happening. I'm going to tell you this here, and a few times I've said this, and people say I was dragging on, but I would worry about where things like that are going to go now, because Jesus Christ, the country's got soft. Like,
but even you take the recruitment videos and that now, the British Army, you're just like, Jesus, what are you trying to get? Like, they're.
They're not what they used to be.
Whereas, like, back in the day, it was like,
do you remember 99.9% of you need not apply? You know,
that's whenever I was joining, that's what it was.
There'd be some man come up out of a murky pond, and there'd be like 99% of you needn't bother.
That was the main one. But like, that there's the kind of things I was like, right, I think I've got this in me. I want to do that there. And you have to have that there. You can't be like, oh, I'm going to join the army for a job just to keep ticking over.
But I would say there's a lot of guys who would be thinking that. I'm just going to join this for a job.
Yeah.
You know, now I'd say there's a load of young ones, or maybe not.
Maybe
it's
they
just
like
my
the
opinion.
uniform.
Do you know what I mean? It's just like, oh, that's something that might be cool. And don't actually grasp what it is they're actually getting into.
But that never lasted 6 weeks. I would say somebody, they get off when they were told.
That's what it's designed for. It's to weed them out. Like.
When they get told they have to get a bus to there, they would be like, oh my God, my mummy can't take me. And they just pull out already. But I know I'm being a bit smart, but literally, I genuinely believe in your age, our age, and Aidan, I'm just going to say you're a wee softy. But it's the last of that old generation. It is the last. They're too soft now. Like they are too soft. Like and that there's no easy way to say that. Like I'm telling you now, you go and get a group of 18-year-old cubs now up the town there, put them all together and tell them they're going to mill the head of each other. They'd all cry. No.
But
anyway,
you see, he's going to get beat up this weekend. Be 18-year-olds.
We're waiting on you.
35 of them. But we'll go back to this, Sammy, because I do want to speak to this side of it. You're out serving in Afghan, and you're doing them there. What actually was the role you were playing them? Were you just were pushing back and setting up camps, or what?
So the car kind of main camp back, it was called Shazad, so it was in like a town or village, so to speak. And at one point, the Taliban were in control of it, so the school had been wrecked, and there was no kids getting to school. There was a lot of so the farmers in that area were being forced to grow the poppy seeds and stuff like that, where like the world's opium comes out of it, and so whenever we were in there, we were just kind of trying to clear the Taliban of that area to give the farmers the right to grow whatever they want. And then in behind us, the engineers now were working to rebuild the school, and we were the security basically, so then kids could get back to school, and the girls were fit to go to school. That was never allowed, and they were one job only, was like look after the house, whereas now they were getting an education. And like you make friends with them wee kids, like, because you see them day and daily, like you're just out in front of them, their houses are left and right to you, and you're giving them sweets and giving them blankets now whenever it got colder and stuff like that, and you do make friends. Obviously you can't, there's only so much you can talk, but like I remember getting stuff sent out. You get like parcels and that can be sent out. I was getting colouring books and stuff like that there to give to the kids so they can sit and colour in and stuff like that. Like, and
then 4 months you served out there?
7. So the first 4 months I was down close, and then obviously we had pushed up, and then it all started again. So 7 months in total. And
like there's some drastic change in Afghan from the heat to the cold. Were you in it during the summer?
She started off in the summer and then went through the cold period. So the winter was freezing.
Jesus.
But it was like, you maybe had 12, 13 degrees during the day, and then night time was down to -5, and you were like sitting on stag, because you're in your camp, you have to stag on, you have big sangers and you're looking out. So you're on a rotation, maybe like on stag for 3 hours, sleeping for 3, and then back on. And you were like getting up, filling a hot water bottle to sit and stag just to keep you warm, because you were shivering.
Like there are the things you don't really think of. But when you came back, then you'd done one tour of Afghan, and then you're right back, and then King Charles now, or Prince Charles at the time, you got your medal, and but how long were you in the army when you came back? Then how long, much more did you serve, or did you go back to the ceremonial duty?
So I come back. I come back 2011, and then I was April-May time, and then I got called back to the Irish Guards November 2011. So just before Christmas, then I had a box up my room in Treepar that I got to know everybody, and then head back.
You didn't think to put in for you wouldn't?
I did. I put in it, but you couldn't transfer. You had to go back, and then 6 months in the Guards before you could transfer. So I was like, right, well, I'll do that. I'll go down, put my transfer in, and go on. Obviously, go back in Irish Guards, back in ceremonial stuff, put my transfer in, and they were like, nah, whatever. Like, you don't want this. Like, also, you come back here, you're a fit lad, and I went into the anti-tanks, it's called the platoon, and like the nickname of them was the anti-salads. So I was in there as one of the fittest. I was a newly promoted lance corporal, and they were just like, right, let's get you in this course, because obviously the other lance corporals weren't fit to go on these courses and pass them, because they couldn't pass the CFT and stuff like that. And then they were like, you're doing that, and I was like, oh, right, well, whatever kind of thing. But I still want my transfer, and they were kind of, no, you're not transferring. And then I got in a wee bit of trouble as well. So just after I got back from Afghan, got in a bit of a fight, and there was a court case pending for it and stuff like that. So then they kind of held that, oh, you can't transfer because of this, that, and the other.
It seems like history's repeating itself here. Because we've heard this before, because it was the same with daughter. You come back. Was this out domestically? Was this out and about?
So it was the first weekend back in Markfast. Literally just back from Afghan. So I was out with my wife now, Orla, and we come out of the LJ's Tavern. We're heading up the street, and two lads, they're coming down their gants and throwing stuff, and I kind of landed over my missus. I think I was talking to somebody, and my missus obviously said something to him, like, oh, what's you doing? And one of them shoved her to the ground, and I just seen mist, and I just went at him, and it was him and his brother. And while I was on top of one, hitting the other one went to battle me, so I got up to chase him, and next time the police jumped out and I run through a policewoman, and I feel like I could have
Okay. But you and this is the problem too. You've now become a trained killer, effectively.
You spent 7 months, and the first reaction you see danger, right? Stuck up, fight for everybody, and here you are. And the army didn't want to help me. They were like, well, you shouldn't be doing it. You're bringing the army. So I went and I got the thing, and then got punished by the army after that. There, and you're just like, well, where was the help to sort me out after? Like, I come back and so you finish Afghan 2 days in Cyprus. I can't hold them responsible for everything. At the end of the day, it was my actions that done it, but they could have helped us go in a bit better. Like, we come back 2 days in Akateria, everybody's fighting among each other. Stuff happened out there. You're sitting back, you're laughing at it. A couple of drinks, you land back, sort everything out. A week later, you were back in Civvy Street for 6 weeks.
So, like, was there a readjustment coming back from that? You know, you'd seen people, you'd known people that were killed, you'd been shot at with RPG, you'd been in firefights.
At the time, you don't see it. Like, obviously, like, that was the guy last year. I mean, I just seen red, and like,
I wasn't a part of who your character is. Not
before, and I couldn't even tell you. I remember that kind of happened in the push. I don't remember the rest of it. Nothing. I was just completely red.
And you're nearly better. The police fucking showed up then. But then, like, obviously, that parts of that there and that drink's always the worst mix in any fire. Like, it's just the last bit of
I barely touch it now. Barely touch it.
But like, you know, you're back, and like, obviously, you know, that happened. Did it scare you, that happening afterwards, when you're like, fuck, I didn't control anything?
No, at the time, I just, well, they fucking deserved it. At the end of the day, that's the way it was. And like, who they were as well, like, obviously not going to name any, they're wee fuckers. Like, they were well known to the court. Like, I actually went to court, and it's not that I got a slap in the wrist, but they were kind of like, right, thanks for your service, but remember, whenever you're back in Northern, you're back in Northern Ireland, you're not here to fight this, because the other two boys were well known to the court, and they didn't really. So but I kind of almost got a slap on the wrist.
Sometimes it can go the completely the other road. You're trained. Your arms are more dangerous than a normal civilian, and we're going to fucking throw the book at you. And it's funny because, like, these are people that's trained to protect the country, and as soon as the everything that you want in them, like the cocktail of characteristics that you want in somebody that's going to train up, and you're going to train them, you're going to send them away to extreme environments, you're going to put them under extreme pressure, you're going to test them. But it's funny, obviously, hand in hand violence and things like that can happen. So it's funny how, as you say, the army just leave you. They train you to be this sort of person. They draw them characteristics out, and then when the shit hits the fan,
they're almost like,
they just wash their hands,
and then they're like punishing you, because we have to be seen to punishing you then.
So then, when you got a slap in the wrist, then and then you went back to the army, what are they? Why do they do it? It's like,
so I got reduced in rank, so I went from Lance Corporal to Private. But that was like, this is why. So that I just
they took you down. Like, that's a fucking big thing too. It's not a pay. That's a
pay cut. And it was quite funny because I had went. So this is like one of the things I wasn't allowed to transfer and blah blah. And then I was supposed to go on that course to become a corporal, but at the same time, this whole was in the background. The date was still pending. So I think I'd done the court case and was kind of waiting, and then the Pathfinder thing kind of come up. I was like, right, I need out of here. I was like, again, doing a ceremonial, hated it. I was drinking all the time. And I was just like, right, what can I do now? And the Pathfinders had been in and give a brief I actually missed it, but I knew who they were. They were the Brigade Raki Force whenever we were like out in Herrick and stuff like that there. So I knew of them.
Just for anyone that's listening, are they the ones that go for the IEDs and clear roads?
No, so that's the EODs. The Pathfinders are, well, like out in it, they were like, it's hard. They were doing jobs that were like more specific. You need to be higher trained to be in the Pathfinders. But the role was different whenever they were there as to what it is conventionally. So they kind of re-rolled for Afghanistan. So they were going out and racking places of like interest and trying to find different things and doing attacks on like maybe a factory of where all this intel was brought back of IEDs and stuff like that there. So they'd go in and clear it and all that kind of stuff. And then I was just like, right, I'm going to do that there. So went to the platoon commander. I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. They're like, no, you're not. I was like, you're on this course, because it kind of coincided with that corporal's course I was supposed to do. And I was like, no, I'm doing that. And I used to ride a motorbike, and I rode a motorbike with one of the officers, and he was getting out. So I got him to sign all my paperwork, so that allowed me to get in the course. So whenever I was supposed to be going away on this corporal's course, I was actually away on the Pathfinder selection course. So as far as I knew, I wasn't there. And away I went down to Wales and gave it a crack. And like that was the first 2 weeks. So it was on my leave. So my wife actually came over the week before, because I wasn't going to get to see her because I was going on this course. Well, we were just, I think we were engaged at that point. She came over and spent a week in camp. And basically I took a chance, rolled the dice with my summer leave, so to speak, because the Olympics and all was going on at that time. And rolled the dice with just giving it a go and see how it goes. So my first 2 weeks of my summer leave was on the PF selection course, and luckily enough I got through. So it's the two kind of hardest phases, and then you're into the soldier. So it's aptitude, where you're doing a load of test marches and stuff with weight in your back. You had to get in a certain time. And then the second week is where you're up in the hills, walking over the hills with big bergens and stuff like that. Yeah.
Did I see this? Is this a thing over a mountain in Wales?
In Wales, actually, the Brecon Beacons.
But I've seen they're doing that course. Is it like a charity thing? People are doing this as like a 36 mile or something?
Different things. So you have like first in events. There's a lad's an ex-PF lad that runs that there as well. So.
Because I seen that, because it was actually the...
Was it Nikki?
Nikki
had said about it. Nikki was on the show.
She had actually had her leg amputated and got that reverse plastic. So she walked that day. She went that, and they weren't going to let her. Like, she's an incredible woman. But it's just when you're saying that there. But is this like a grade up again?
Oh, so like this is, you're the advanced force basically of the British Army. So you have like the British Army Special Forces, and we were that grey space in the middle basically. So anything that was going to happen. So whenever I luckily passed the selection, whenever I first got there, it was all the big turnover from the change from like the Afghan area. So we were just refinding basically and retraining to become the conventional Pathfinder of like how they were supposed to operate and how they operated in World War II and stuff. So we had went in maybe 2 days before. So say anything was happening in a different country, we would go into that country 2-3 days in advance. Make sure like the places that it's seen in the map was what it is in the ground, maybe clear spaces for helicopters or airplanes, or take an airfield or something like that there, maybe a disused airfield, and clear it all up so then the main force could come in. So and then from there, then we'd punch on out. We're always working behind enemy lines, so to speak, like having a look and getting disposition, and sending that all back then for the battalions to come in and attack.
How did your partner feel? Because it sounds like it's getting more and more dangerous each time.
She didn't know. she knew I was going like a kind of next step up, and like, I just had that thing. Like I was, as I say at the start, I was a soldier. I wanted to be the best soldier, and obviously, like the parachute regiment was a step up. Loved that. I was like, right, I'm good at this here, and then what's the next step? The Pathfinders, because at that point I was still young. 2012, I passed that then.
And then what did you get? Did you do an hour tour with them or?
So again, they changed away from Afghan, so it was more like a conventional role. So a lot of it was fine, and so we were doing a lot of partner work with different Pathfinders and stuff, and resetting up. So a good part of the first 3 or 4 years was kind of doing all that, and then you come into so even like Afghan was kind of all the way. So the fighting tours were gone, and it was like STTs, we call it, so short-term training teams. So you were going out for like 6 weeks and we were out in Jordan and stuff like that there, taking their soldiers and training them up to a level. And they're kind of going off and doing what they needed to do. I think they were like more defending their border type thing of stuff like that there, and there was things like that there just dotting about, but a lot of it was just setting up and being ready for if anything was to happen, like the whole Afghan thing with everybody pulling out. The Pathfinders were in on it and helping evacuate people. There's like other cases.
And then you must have then reached a point where you had to make a decision, and because you could have went if you were young and they were saying you Lance Corporal, and then you were going for it's Lance Corporal, and then Corporal. Aye. So you're now on the steps to a career soldier.
Yeah.
And you had to make that decision. You know, it'd have been easier. Am I right in saying this? It'd have been easier to do a career soldier in the Irish Guards and just sit back and say, I'm going to.
So, like, as far as like easy, yes, but what I wanted now,
that's what I mean.
But it would have been now.
And then you sort of used the court cases when they brought you back, as in, well, then fuck, you can't keep me here to go on to Corporal. I'm out.
Well, this is the saying. So the court case was kind of in procession at that time, so they didn't even actually get a chance to punish me at the time, because then next thing was away in PF. So it only just the court case kind of happened before, and I went in PF and then done all this. And I actually, whenever I was in the Pathfinders, about 6 months later, I got called back to the Irish Guards, because you're still kind of under the Irish Guards, but you're with the Pathfinder. And they called me back and bussed me rather than just leaving me there as a Lance Corporal, because like a lot of the roles and the jobs within Pathfinders, you kind of needed a better rank so you could do it. Like, you weren't fit to do it as a Tom. So they called me back and bussed me.
Do you think that was just a fucking dig?
And that was the straw in the end. So it's literally, as soon as I got bussed, the way it worked out, I got bussed for a year, but I got bussed for 6 months and lost 6 months like pay. So it worked out a year because it took them so long to bust me. Yeah. And that was like in the mouth of my wedding. I ended up down to a private's wage minus half of the Lance Corporal's wage. I was like, oh, you're joking me. Taking that off the bottom of it. Luckily I had it all kind of gathered up anyway, but I just like, yeah, punch.
Aye, and what was there?
I was a nail in the coffin, and I was like, I'll never be back in the Irish Guards.
Aye, but what I was going to say, who is it? The Sergeant Major back in the thing, were they sort of a bit aggrieved that you decided that you were going to go?
Well, I think it was my like platoon commanders and stuff like that there, because you went against them, you know, because they were like, oh no, this is your career. I was like, but I don't want that, I want this. And they were like, no, like I never got permission to go in the course, but I bit the bullet and give it a go. And away I went. So even whenever I went over to the Pathfinders, I was like, oh, because it was an induction week where you kind of go and get inducted just before Christmas leave. We were being stood down for Christmas leave. I was like, oh, well, look, I know, because they told me I wasn't allowed to go. I packed everything up in my room, stuck it all in the van. It was like my mate drove the van. I headed up to Colchester. I unpacked it. I knew I wasn't going back, but they expected to see me after Christmas. I never went back.
And then after
once I got there, like they obviously looked after me.
Aye, because they would have been higher ranking, then they could have turned around and said, no, it's going to stay with us. So once you had made that decision, you were there and you spent a few years and you're out training. Did you travel many countries?
Oh, all over. Like, see, once you get to Pathfinders, you're all over the world. Spent a lot of time in Europe. And I'd never been to America before. I think 4 times I was in America in the 1 year, and
brilliant,
doing different things.
Whenever you were in clearing areas, did you ever come under fire? Like, was it just you went in and cleared certain spaces?
So like these here we didn't actually get to do the job because like there hasn't been a war since Afghan. Well, obviously things were kicking off, so a lot of our training would have been like the whole scenario with Russia at the minute was like how to combat it and thing. If like they're to come into Poland, so we were like flying from Bryce Norton and jumping into Poland, showing like mass. Oh, you're not doing it, but it's a big exercise. You're with Americans and all this here, and you're all coming together doing this role as if this happens, this is what we're going to do.
So you're throwing hypothetical situations. You'd be up in Norway and round in Poland and doing things just all on the borders. Like,
it's a show of force, basically. Just say, look, if you're going to do it, we're ready. Yeah. Type thing. Just trying to keep them back. Like that poison of Russia was been going 10 years before they actually crossed the border.
Aye, because the amount of times they move ones up to the Norwegian border, it's Norway, isn't it? The borders them on the north side. Oh. I think it is, and the amount of times they've moved. And then they moved back, and then they were doing it in Ukraine. But tell me,
always down that bottom, that Crimea.
Yeah. Well, tell me then, you when you went back and you're in the Pathfinders, and obviously you're enjoying it. You've obviously subsequently left the army now. So what did you just feel your role? You were married now, and
I love I still miss it every day. But I had kids, I had 2 kids. And the wife fell pregnant again. and my eldest was diagnosed with autism, and it kind of killed me because they were living back home. I had moved them home at this stage, and I was coming home like whenever I could, because I could have been away 6 weeks at a time, 8 weeks at a time, and then back for a weekend, a long weekend, like Thursday thing. And obviously, like the autism side of life and that there, I can come back and throw my son completely out of routine. And he was loving life, he was enjoying it. But it was the 2 weeks after that there that my wife had to endure, where I just come back, basically took him like a Coke bottle, shook him right up, and then I leave and open the lid, and my missus left to deal with all of that there. And I was just like, it was 100%. It was for him that I did it. I was like, I can't put my son through that, and that's why I left.
Because it's massively important to have a set routine. Like you just coming in and out, like I would just fucking.
Which is like something we're rigid on now in the house. I don't know where it's come from my military background or not, but it really works for him, and it obviously helps him.
Well, when you came out of the army and you look back at that, and you were 21 and you're out there, and I know asking soldiers political questions is not nice, because in the way, like, you know, you're doing what's right to you. You want to go and help, but from what you've seen and what you're getting sent out to do and what you hear, you know, should you've ever been there? Like, should you be like, should any of the army been in Afghan?
Well, being on the ground, like at my time on the ground, I'm glad we were there. Like seeing the kids going to school and seeing this and seeing that. But I'll be honest, see, since Afghan got overrun again and they had to go back in, I haven't watched the news or anything like that there. And I think you're better not thinking about that side of life. I like the fact that whenever I was out there, I done good.
It's a better place.
It was a better place whenever I was out there. So to think of what it is now, I don't want to know what way it is. Because on it, like, I'm getting emotional now because I don't know what happened to them kids and stuff and that they're out there. And I would rather think of the time that they were in it. So I haven't watched the news since. I don't watch the news, I don't track the news, I don't do anything. Because that brought me to a bad place whenever all that was going on.
Well, Sean asked this earlier. We're talking how, Sammy, the things then endured in the army when you left it, and like I know obviously from talking to you how passionate you were about it, and how much you loved it and how much it was a part of your character. You know, it shaped you. But how do you deal then now with, like, if somebody was shot at once in their life, let alone in a war zone and RPGs going off and fighting and always watching and always hypertension, like that could explode, they could attack, we need to watch, always watching that for 7 months, living in an environment where it's just, they don't want you there, they want to kill you, that's just their sole aim. Did that catch up? Does that ever catch up with you?
It definitely, 100% it did. Like as I say, you kind of had pressures building, and I would say I was out about a year, and I come out literally right in the mouth of COVID, and I had literally was just coming into my resettlement where you go and retrain and do things to qualify to be fit to work outside, and I had obviously courses and all, but I wasn't fit to do any of them. And like, you had the option then to sign back on and stay until I kind of ride the wave, but obviously, like as I said about my son, it wasn't right for me. And my dad had a window cleaning business, so I kind of jumped on with, and I was cleaning windows with him. I was like, right, well, that'll be enough to keep us ticking over. And then with all that, there's added stresses of COVID and having a baby. We had a baby in COVID, and it was just a load of added stresses and everything piled up. And then that Pandora's box opened for me, where you start nightmares and flashbacks and anxiety and lots of other stuff. So like, it definitely it catches up with you. But I think it was being out of the environment, because whenever I was in it and you were living in it, like, these are things I never spoke about, and it didn't really, like, you were just that busy. You were constantly on the go. You're like, right, what's the next thing? What are we training towards next? Like, and as Pathfinders, you were kind of looking at what threats might arise and how you can do it, constantly getting J2 updates. You're always looking into the future. You never had time to look behind you.
Aye, when all the place stops spinning, the chaos starts.
Uh-huh.
Well, like, you know, you're saying there the fly, and like, did the army have a system in place for you that, you know, like, you could talk to somebody?
I think they did, but I wouldn't even know how to go about going to get it. Like, it's not readily available. I don't think somebody sitting in an office or whatever, but like, you kind of, whenever we come back, they were like, oh, like, everybody all right? You was all, aye, good. That was it, the event. There was no actually sitting down and talking to it. It was only that I went and done it myself now, that I've actually sat down and started talking and facing these things. Like, I haven't even, the stuff I spoke to you about today, I have never even spoke to the lads I was out there with about it, and they probably never have spoke about it. But it's only now that, obviously, I was in a place where it was like everything was just coming down on top of me, and I was just like, I need to do something about this. And that kind of come, my cousin, he kind of come out of the army a bit after me, and I was in the gym with him, and the head coach in there, he struggled with post-traumatic stress disorder, and I was kind of talking to him, and I was like, you know what, like, I need to go and get help. And it was, I had an incident in the house where I kind of lost the head. It was over nothing. It was just loads of stresses, like window cleaning's a bit. If it's raining, you're not earning and stuff like that. Like even just there, like July, it's brutal. Like brutal rain, and I just haven't been out there, and you're like, where the fuck's the next payslip? Obviously, you gather it up, but it soon dwindles whenever you get that month of rain. And it's just that stress, and I flipped out, and I couldn't even tell you what it's about now, but I took the wife's dinner and launched it towards the sink, and there's a mark on my, what do you call it, the mantle piece of the windowsill just above it and that there, and like I was just like, just seeing the fear of my kids sitting around the dinner table, and I was like, I cannot be like this for them, I need to get help. So I started talking to him a bit, and then seek professional help, and after that there I went and spoke and talked.
Is there a thing that you're saying none of the rest of them talk about it? Like, this is a funny thing. If somebody asked you in a group of people, are you all right? And you might be the one person sitting there and be like, no, I'm not fucking all right. But everyone else is saying, yeah, 100%. And you're like, I should be fine. It makes it harder to fucking...
That's it. And then, like, even since we have come back, the amount of lads that I served with have taken their own life. Like one recent there, like April time, just took a gun, stuck it in his mouth, and ended it for himself. And like, that's why I'm like, I'm happy. I'm starting to face it a lot now. I'm talking about it and thing. That's why I'm happy to do these podcasts and actually talk about it. Because if somebody else maybe listens to this that I survey, they're going through similar things, but are just letting it pile up, like, go and talk to somebody. It helps, unbelievable. And like friends have done it and have left family behind. Like I know a lad, the 2 kids just bought a house. He was in the middle of renovating his kitchen. Next thing is, what do you call it, a neighbour or whatever found him hanging out by a tree, and he's like, you know what I mean? Like, they were coming in steady. Like over that COVID period, the amount of lads that took their own. There's now been more soldiers from the Afghan era commit suicide than there was actually die out in Afghanistan, which is, it just shows you the problem. Like as we were saying about the army not helping. You know what I mean? Like the army has failed them, but not just the army, the parliament that fucking sent them out there as well.
Well, I'm going to say this here, and I've heard it said more times. If the guys that made the decision of who went to war was the first one on the line, there wouldn't be a lot of us at war.
No, wouldn't have fucked.
And like, it's easy to make decisions for young boys' lives when you're sitting in your fancy house or you're sitting in number 10 and you're sitting in the thing. It's easy to make decisions that have no compound effect on your home comfort. But like, that is actually mental, what you've just said to me. There has been more people lost their life to the mental trauma, the suicide, from what they've experienced than actually lost it in the war itself.
In the war, yeah.
That's fucking...
And that's the bit that's hard to process.
There's a massive...
Like, you can accept it at war, because you're right there, you're at war. You've all volunteered, we're all getting paid to be there, but you can't... I've seen it, it's at home, and...
There's an anger in that.
Oh, big time.
You ask these people to protect you, protect your freedom, go out and do something that and we joked about this, 99% of people can't do. You ask this of them, and then when they do that and they give that, fuck you. You know, no support, no...
There is people there, like, and there's ones obviously trying to help. But it's most charities.
Spitting on a fire.
It is charities, like, doing most of the work.
Like,
and you almost feel, do you want to go to a charity? Because like, you know what I mean? You're almost starting to feel bad. It was like, I'm at that stage, like, because like since I've left the army, like financially, I was a lot better off in the army, and there's things and like struggling and stuff like that, which is all added, and that's where my what do you call it? Delayed onset of PTSD comes from. So the more stressed I get, then the more the flashbacks start happening and stuff like that there. So like that wet July there, coming near the end of July. That's whenever it starts setting into me, and then I'm like, right, I need to go and get help, which again costs money.
Aye, and like, you know, they think nothing of spending £1 billion on a developing an airplane that might never take off, or buying fucking masks that don't suit this country, or fucking, it's unbelievable when you say that to me that's a massive, not to say a letdown is actually just doesn't even come close to it. But like, you're saying that you've obviously always had your wife in your corner, and you've had a good network, and I have to say to you, fair play to you, like, how many people change their career from something they love. And I know this is all right to say because I mean this. People always say, "Oh, my children come first. My children come first." There's a lot of people there that's not actually true. And I know that sounds stupid to say because there's a lot of people there would say that, and then you see them making decisions, and you're like, well, you're not putting your child first there. But
I would have been guilty of that there as well. Like a wee bit at the start, like my wife was at home with 2 kids, and I was away, live 6 weeks maybe in America parachuting and stuff like that. That's not putting my kids first. But as soon as I realised what I was doing, like obviously I was out chasing my dream and doing what I loved and doing my thing. But at the end of the day, like me and the wife, like we come into contracts, so to speak, that bring these kids. You have to be here for it, and I'm never going to get that time back. And see, once you leave, I was just like, thank God, because you're just a number. As soon as you leave, like, that's it. I get a letter every year to say, "Oh, sign back on to make sure your address is still the same." Like the first year, I was like, "Oh, sign it and send it back." See now, it literally comes in and sticks straight in the bin. I was like, why should I just send it back?
Is there
to you?
disappointment?
This is the only time you ever you haven't lifted the phone or done whatever, or like even a dedicated person will be like, "Well, how have you found the transition into civilian life? Have you found it or nothing?" Mm-hmm. As soon as you're gone, you're gone. The only thing I hear about is my close friends. That is it.
Like, you fucking ditched, like.
So rather than saying that letter, it's like, right, that's his anniversary. He's been out 3 years. Just give him a wee ring, make sure he's all right. Nothing. Fuck all.
And then what way does that make your memory of the army? Like, you loved it, it shaped you, you made so many friends and thing, but to know that you were used in a way,
that's how you would feel. Like, I loved the job anyway, so I'm not hold any. I think it's just you can't hold it again. Like within like the units I served in, like the guards part, like they're all special units. Like there was only ever I was number 272 ever to pass the Pathfinder selection course. So it's only a small number, and like see all them blokes, like we all care about each other.
There's only 272.
Well, I think there's there'll be over 300 now, but maybe under 400 that I've ever passed since 1985. It's the type of course 50 people come on, 2 or 3 pass.
You must be a most thick-headed cunt, but when it comes to something, you're just like, a dog with a bone job.
I'm in like obviously into the fitness, and you start to kind of understand it. But my why was strong. I didn't want, like, if I didn't pass that course, I was getting out of the army then. Whereas obviously passed. So my why was strong. You would have been pulling me out half dead out of like the holes I was lying in that course, because that was the hardest thing I ever done at that point. Like, and I was like, you can pull me out by the feet if you want, but I am not giving up because my why was that strong. Let's get it done.
Well, actually, that's
the same as like the stress factors. My why was like, I need out of here. Let's go and do it. Whereas there's somebody who was like, quite enjoying battalion life, but fancy the wee change. They never had to go through it because they wouldn't have been fit to put themselves in that position to run on.
So tell me, where have you directed that now then? Obviously you love being in that, and you said about fitness.
Yeah,
so are you into endurance racing and stuff?
I am indeed, yes. So I have one coming up actually at the end of the month.
You don't know me, son. Sammy Goggins.
You
were looking to get out of there somewhere. Sammy Goggins.
They don't know me.
I can't even stand it. It's too American for me. I think whenever you're in the army and you work along with the American army, it's just like, it's too American. But like, fair play to him. He's an absolute savage. But
he's a very clever boy, I know.
Near time, I wish I was a wee bit more together.
You'd be like, I could fucking do the running.
I worked with SEAL Team 5 and all. Like, we had done joint exercises and that with them. It's like that's the same level like I was kind of at as well. But no, fair play to him. Like, and I've read his books and done fiction.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you, Sammy. I'm really actually impressed because I don't mean this, right? But I thought we were getting like we're doing the background, we're checking soldier, and obviously haven't went into the full in depth of your military background, but we got a proper soldier, and that's no disrespect to Darn. But what I mean is, you did put yourself in the position where the things we see now, you're now not at you're at the level of the Hollywood movies where they're the SEAL teams. You're working with these the in behind. Would there been any NDA? Would there been any some of the stuff that you were at, and then you're like, I'm just still not about to talk. You would not.
So like I was, whenever you get it's nicknamed the Ghost Platoon. So whenever you're there, like social media, you're not on social media. So my social media is still the same. I have a joint Facebook account with them, and that was just to keep in touch with the lads back home because nobody had Facebook or anything like that there. It was all hush hush. You didn't know, like, even there was times we get called in, maybe possibly going somewhere or whatever. My wife, I couldn't even tell my wife where that was or nothing.
That's mad.
And like you had to go through security clearance, like high level security clearance, till we had to go in and like these J2 briefs to know what's going on. Like, and you had to keep it all yourself, and still you don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm. That's mad. You're at the fucking crazy conspiracy side of shit, you know, where people want to get in, but obviously that's what you strive. You do that, and you want to be the best. Sean says now you've moved on. Like I 100% will not come to you to train because you'd be imagine giving up at number 8. No, I never get. Now he'll tell you, like listen, even for a fat boy that's out of shape from rugby, all through rugby. If somebody says to me, "We're going to do 10 of these," I'll do 10 if it takes me all day. You might not know, but there's an ignorance in me, or if we were to do something,
the same mentality you need for that.
No, I don't think it's exactly the same mentality. I think there's a big gulf between that mentality. But what I mean is, I ain't coming to you and giving up a 9. Like, can you imagine this? Imagine you're like, fuck me, it's 5 kilo. But have you transferred your passion? Because you're obviously like an intense guy, so that you're all in on what it is you're doing. Like, so the cleanest windows, whatever you're doing, and I'm not saying that. I mean, whatever you're doing, you're all in now.
All 100%, and it's even just to inspire a few people. That like, I'm just a normal bloke. I grew up in Macfell, and I went on and got to do all these things. But even whenever I was in PF, you'd done the Carter, and it was hard. You finished it with endurance, and that kind of opened my eyes to endurance. Because through it, I had quit 5 times, but never actually quit. You know, I was just like, I can't do it. And then you do it, and you're like, you know, I done that there. And that was over there in Brecon Beacons. It's 80 odd K. You have 24 hours, but you have 70, 80 pound in your back. So everything's pulling you down and doing this. And then I kind of put it in, like, I kind of found I put myself in that locker a wee bit, like, as you say, David Goggins, like, right, what can I do next? Mm-hmm. So I've done 4 marathons back to back up in Donegal. I never run a marathon before.
Back to back?
So started at 12 o'clock on a Saturday and finished at 20 past 1 on the Sunday. 25 hours 20, 108 miles.
That's mental.
It was in clutches for 4 days after.
I love the fact where he goes, yeah, we're on the same wave. So you're on 100 and what is that, 108 miles?
That's what I finished, I think, on the watch.
108 mile in a day.
So that was the plan. I wanted to do it in under 24 hours, but the weather came in. I had a bad up over Manmore Gap. I had a bad touch of the weather, and I kind of seized up a bit, but I got it done. Like that same brute ignorance, getting it done. And then I've done like that's raising money for charity, and then I do.
You hadn't done a marathon.
I never done a marathon. So my first marathon,
even back to back.
Even in training, like I went to 25.5 miles, but never run over it. But I backed it up maybe the next day and run an hour 10 mile, but I never went over 25 miles. The first marathon I ever passed was the first one I'd done on that course, and I got like the medal you got one marathon and they all bolted together to make one medal. It'd
be a bad job you done 3 and it looked like a missing piece.
At one point I thought it was going to be that way. I think the last 8 mile took me the same length of time as it took me to do the first marathon because I was in bits.
Like
I overtrained for it. See, now I'm training a wee bit smarter, so.
Smarter. So you're more efficient.
And then,
I could do 110 mile now.
And then I've done like a few long cycles and that with my father-in-law. He quit smoking and he does a charity cycle every year basically. So I've joined in a few of them. That's all for stuff like he's just finished one there for Facts. It's a local charity to help families with autism and around the Middlesbrough area and stuff like that. And then last year we done it for diabetes, because that son with the autism actually was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes as well. And so just charity things like that. And then this one, so I've got one at the end of the month and doing a last man standing, where I kind of have a goal in my head, like the 24, it's 100 mile in 24 hours. So if you run 24 hours on it, you get the 100 miles. So, but that's more for me. I'm not doing any charity, and people's like, oh, what charity? And I'm not doing it for charity for this one, because I think I've been through a lot mentally and stuff, and I'm kind of just coming out the other side of it, and I want to test myself, see if I still got that mental battle that I had whenever I was in, and then I have a few ideas then for post that there of kind of what I want to do, and there's already like charities I've seen that I kind of want to help out, or people raising money, and I want to help out and push on and do that kind of thing to keep me taking over.
I love that the fact you're like just like a wee. I like a wee challenge. Well, I like a wee challenge. That's me like saying to Sean, you know what, Sean? I think I'm going to do a challenge 5k. No, maybe not 5, maybe 3k. Or I'll do 3K.
Do you know what Owen's challenge was at the start of the week on Monday? I'm going to have sugar in my tea, and I'll tell you what.
How many sugars you put in there?
He's in this morning. He's like, put one of them sugars in that.
I've had a hard week, Sean. All right, and you know what? I'm glad you helped me stay strong. All right, but you know what? And I know you're saying this here, right? But it's funny there that you're saying this, but it's obviously that this test thing. And I look, listen, this isn't a parallel, but I understand it to a degree. Never, absolutely, actually, I understand it to a degree. But there's something weird, and I've always said this: if you do physicality sports, or you do some sports, or you do something, the one thing I loved about rugby was that I used to be kind of scared before I started playing. And what I mean, kind of scared, not scared, like nervous with it. You know, I used to say, if somebody's coming at me full pelt, am I going to put the shoulder in, or am I going to fold? And I always enjoyed testing the fight or flight in myself. I always enjoyed putting myself in a position, even when it was boxing, even if it was the charity boxing or anything like that, where you put yourself in a position where there's nowhere to go, but you'll find out what's in you, and not what's in your mind. What's just when you're thinking, and you would have put the shoulder in, and
it's most of, like 80% of it's mental.
And when you come out,
I was the same with rugby. I used to be like, but see, once you actually get, that's whenever you actually didn't get hurt. You get hurt whenever you're fanning out of it, like trying to.
But like afterwards, there was always like I can't compare to that because I don't understand the level.
But everybody has different.
But you must enjoy finding that part of you out. Like you find that of you out that most people in their entire life will never know about themselves. Yeah. They won't know if that's
what I'm like basically looking to get out of the end of this. It's the end of the month. It is. I want to find myself again, so to speak.
Tell me, whenever you're training, do you train with music?
I stick to all podcasts and stuff, books.
Good podcast. Hey, plug. He arrived and goes, never hear these.
Yeah, that kind of just, I've kind of gotten that, because even if you're in your own head, especially like window cleaning, I'm out on my own, I'm in my van all day, and you're on your own. So see, whenever I'm having a bad day, by the time I get home, my day's 10 times worse, because I've thought that. So again, put books. I read loads of, like, my book kind of choices and that have changed now. Obviously, I'm into the gym and it's all mindset stuff. And like, it's helped me big time.
I think that's different. I think if I stuck on something whenever I was training, but see, music, I got it in my head that music was getting me going, if that makes sense. So you're waiting for this song to come on. And then I was like, you don't need music to get you going in the gym or to be fit to get yourself in the right headspace. And I was like, no more music. And that was it. Stop listening to music.
I'm different, right? Back when I was training, I liked it because I wanted to think of anything other than what I was fucking doing. No, all joking aside, even like I said this to him, I always enjoyed maybe circuits or something because I always hated, like, say if you told me to go on a bike for 10 minutes, that's not worth a fuck, because for the simple reason is that I always wanted to like cram it in as much as I can and come out busted. And then the thing I always enjoyed about the circus was you would have started something and it would have been like a 45-minute thing. You'd be like, it's 45 minutes, and you'd just be like, right, 10 minutes left, there's 10 minutes left. And the way I used to work it then was, as you got fitter, you'd have done more. So you're always fucked. You never felt any better at the end of any session, but then 3 months later, you're like, I've done that twice.
I know, exactly.
On a heavier weight. I'm obviously twice. But
you'd love Ray Academy. You should go down tomorrow and give it a word.
Hey, plug there anyway.
Hey, good man. Actually, you know what? I need to do something, but I've went through a lot of PTs and a lot of offers here, so I'll start with sugar, start tracking myself. But I know we're saying this here, and there will be people here. I actually... You know, Sam, I was saying to Sean, I had fucking fire out for him all this week. I really, really enjoyed, because I love hearing the intricacies of army, the training, the mindset of all that. Now I've enjoyed it, but there will be people that will be watching this here and they'll be like, they're in that sort of they maybe left it, or they're not sure that's what's in the back of the head, and there's things like that. What would you say to someone like, what would be the one thing for you? Like they always say, rehabilitating back to civilization, like whether it's from the army or prison, and they draw the comparison because you're on a different reality to the reality then you're in. What would you say to somebody if they were struggling there, or they were getting that tight? Like you obviously have your fitness, and you have the like what would be your advice to them if they were on, if you were to do that again? What would you find?
I'd probably seek it a bit earlier. Like it's even you look back, like even from my time in the army, like I was a hothead, and like that's all coming from the post-traumatic distress disorder. Like, and I know people will be angry, but I can guarantee most people on that would be a hothead and short tempers and stuff. They probably have been through a trauma. Like, so anybody, like if you think you're an angry person, or even as you say coming out of it, go and get help. Like, cause see, once you actually sit down, and it's only recently, like as I say, like I wouldn't this time last year, there was no way I'd come on here and talk about like experiences, because I'd never even spoke about it. I'd never even looked back at it. So like them Afghan experiences with a gun, I'd never even looked back at pictures and that. So it's only now that I pulled out a hard drive. I think it's the second time it's ever been on my thing, and sat and watched like videos and pictures, because it's funny, like you take pictures and that after you come back in from a real hard day's fighting, you maybe go and 8 hours and was this and that and all, and like I could look at the picture and I'd be like, I know why that picture was taken, what happened in that, and like I'm trying to, you have to face it. If you don't face it, it's always going to be there. Like, and that's one thing I'm doing big time at the minute. I'm opening it up, like, and then we'll see. But obviously, if I need it, I'll head back and I'll talk about it and do this and do that.
See that talking and doing that and
you need to find the right person as well. So yeah. I've been to a couple, but like some of them, you're sitting telling them, but they have no idea. And you almost, whenever they're like that and they're kind of not really giving you the thing, like even you here, we're quite understanding and talking, so you can talk more about it. Whereas like the first kind of therapist I was talking to, you weren't really getting much back, and you're like, well, how much do I tell her here? But before she maybe stick me in a white coat or something like that. There. But you need to find the right person.
But you're saying that, and my wife, Sean's wife, is actually doing counselling now, and they were having a conversation that me and you were in on, and it's a partnership.
Yeah, 100%, and you need to trust them.
And also, if you're not getting on that one, don't think that the process doesn't work. Just cut that one and get somebody that is. And actually, that's something I'm actually glad you said, because no matter if it's stress, trauma, if it's from post-traumatic stress or trauma from your youth or sex, whatever it is, and you've eventually plucked up the courage. And this is the one thing that's really hard about that. It's so hard to get the courage to go and talk to somebody. It's heartbreaking that if that first person's not helping, you're like, this isn't happening. It's not that talking's not happening. That person's not helping. And they're only and I'm actually really glad you said if the first person don't, and cut them quick. Cut them quick. If you don't feel comfortable having that conversation, being open and feel like you're getting help, then cut them and go to somebody. But
like, this podcast has helped me because I struggle with anxiety. So like, for me, I stopped drinking and stuff like that. Because see, if I go out to a pub, I constantly feel as if people are like looking at me because of the country we're from and obviously the job role that I did. And like in Mackfelt, that's very mixed anyway. And like I'm in a mixed marriage, so take my kids to even like they play Gaelic football and stuff like that, and I take them up to their training and stuff. And even there, I would be like, are they judging me? And like that's all going through your head. But when you go into therapy, you're like, that's in your head. That's not what they're thinking. Like a few of them now, like have obviously maybe listened to a podcast and they're like, oh, you were in the army or some story, and they genuinely talk to you about it and you feel quite welcome. Yeah. But whenever you're there, you're like, oh, this is it. Because like I was never really in that there before, and you're just like, they're quite accepting of it. Like at the end of the day, I didn't join the army because I wanted to come over here and go in and do whatever estates, this, that, and on. Like I was brought up with the both sides, celebrated the 12th, I celebrated Paddy's Day, I went down, and like, now I don't celebrate any of them because I'm just like, well, it's whenever you get actually away from the place, the town, and like the small-minded mentality and it's like, that doesn't matter. There's a lot more bigger things, and there's almost like the country wants to keep you at that there because it keeps them in a job. Well, not that they're much in it.
I think a lot of it, before you go and talk to somebody, is that you build the picture up in your head about what everybody else thinks. And it's not what it is. It's not what it seems. But as you say there, you're building that picture up in your head. Even before you even go to the place, you're like, oh, what is this going to be like? And what's that going to be like?
And you
then
feel
you have
uncomfortable
anxiety coming on you, and you're
the
like,
whole time you're there.
and then once you get there and you've been through it, you're like, what was I even worried about? But it's only by going and bringing them tools on board.
Not even the first time. Like, there's still, if I see like a dad that hasn't been there, I'm like, Jesus, he's judging me, is he? And like,
But then a lot of that is the training that you've got to be,
you're constantly over-analysing analysing everything. Because
every situation that you'd have been trained to deal with, they were a threat and they were of malice. Where when you come back, not every person is a malice or has that thought, but it's a you're trying to unwind the clock that's been wound for years.
Wind up.
But like, fucking one of the hardest, toughest people we've ever had on talking about that. It's tougher. The toughest thing is your own mind. I'd say it's easier for you to complete them courses than to turn around and say, I need help and go and talk to somebody. It's a funny, your mind, nothing's as bad, nothing's as good or as bad as the thinking of the doing. So, you ever hear that?
Yeah.
So, like,
you might be fit to do that 100 miles.
You don't know, son!
Only sounds bad.
What year?
Hey, Sean.
We'll grab the books, boys. Let's go.
I don't want your negativity, but like, this is, but it is, and it's very refreshing that you're saying that and going and talking to someone and having that there. No, something, I don't know, me and Sean must think we're therapists or something, because it feels sometimes, even to us, that talking to people on this and talking to you, there's like a therapy in it. Mm-hmm. You're having an open conversation and nobody's fucking sitting here judging each other. And like, I have actually very thoroughly enjoyed that and really enjoyed you coming on, Sammy. And it was a good laugh, but I feel like there has to be a follow up here at some point. Me and Sean are launching a wee thing. We'll touch in with you once you're doing your 100 miles. Just take a wee challenge.
Well, I'll put it out there. I better make it. I'll put it out in a few now, but no, we'll see.
But then also,
that's the minimum goal.
Also,
I want to see how far I got and what I can do.
Also, anyone out there, well, tell me, see the people you're training now. Are you training people for that high end endurance or from any level of?
So at the minute, I'm in the gym, so I don't really, like, I'm still learning. I've 2 years kind of been at it, but only qualified a year. And so I'm still learning. I don't really know one, but like that high end, I think that's the one that I kind of want to tap into as well. And kind of, but you need to put in the groundwork, like, especially on the gym floor, and understand. Like, I done an online PT course, so I was like, at the start, whenever I first started, I was doing this online thing, and I was just like, I've learned nothing. I like reading it and just about reading it to pass the test to move on to the next thing. So I ended up then going and doing a course down in Belfast where it was like hands on, and you learned how the body moved, and you learned all this stuff. And then obviously you have to have, like, as to say, you need to have a niche. And like, I enjoy the whole endurance side of life, and I can draw from experiences of it. So it's definitely something that I'm going to want to push into, and like, get people that are maybe doubt themselves, like, I can't do this here, but I can. And like at Re Academy, we do that. So we have our gyms, and like, that's within the gym, but every so often we'll have away days, so to speak, or do whatever. And that's like our military experience, because like Keith is in the military as well, and we kind of like take them, we're doing stretcher races and putting them through like maybe 2-3 hours through the mud and different things like that.
That
there,
actually
like,
sounds like crack. That actually sounds like crack. You'd be
I love it.
But people find themselves, they find out like, I'm capable of much more stuff than that.
But you're taking people from, like, maybe never done sport. Like, sport sometimes does give people an insight till that wee part of themselves for pushing. Like, there's funny, I was saying this, like, my wife will not thank me for saying this, but she came to this circus one time, and I was like, you're a fucking quitter. I started giving them things. Nikki would look around, she would do 8 instead of 10, and I'm like, fuck, I couldn't deal with that. Like that,
see, as a coach, that's not nice. I'd rather you take your time, do the number, and whether you get it done, you get it done.
You're only fooling yourself, Job. But
you are bringing them from, they can barely get up and down off the floor, and next thing you know, they're doing burpees, they're doing that, and I love it, to be fair, and giving somebody else a better quality of life, like, within.
But also, they're learning a bit about themselves. Because
100%.
See that there, when you're pushed to the edge, or you're puking, and you knuckle down or do it, or you don't, like, there'll be some buzz going away and doing them things. Like, it actually does sound like a crack. Doesn't sound like good crack if you're in the middle of it and you're coming through it and you're about to throw up, like.
But it's the unknown. So like, one of the ones we done, I'm trying to think what it was called, Rise and Conquer. So all we told them, and this was it. It was like, right, meet at the gym, 4:00 in the morning. You're getting on a bus, and we had these bits of paper. It was all like mind games, designed to say if anything happens to you, you're not going. What do you call it? And the buses were all
Don't
black.
say too much because if you don't know one,
The buses were all blacked out. We drove them up, and next thing, like it was a pure like military type thing. So I was there waiting. Next thing I'm piling on, get off the bus, get out. And next thing we had them running into Glenora Forest, and
That
then you
sounds
go through the
fucking
different.
cool.
But it's bringing that wee bit of experience, like because we learnt a lot of stuff
Something
from that,
different.
and it is and we just run one there recently for actual fitness industry, like the whole like PTs and people, gym owners and stuff like that. There, Recon it was called, and we got everybody. So it was basically reconnecting. So at the minute, the gyms are all disordered. Everybody's in their own wee corner, and they're like, "This is mine. This is me." And they don't want to hang. Whereas now you get them all together and work and give each other ideas and stuff. And that was the idea
it's
behind
such
it.
a bitchy wee
And
environment. What is
like
it?
they thought we had them for a Friday night. We had started them and finished on a Sunday, and they never quit. Like we sent them to bed about 9:00 on the Friday night. 12:00 at night, we kicked the doors and put them on a bus. The next thing when we were in Port Stewart Strand, and like it was like hell week, logs up and over the head and into the water, back out, thrashed again. I went over 2.5, 3 yards.
But you know, I there's bound to be some people. I don't give a shit what anyone says, right? Some like I had seen it first hand. I remember we used to go along, and these boys were chiseled, come out, and they absolutely looked the part, right? And I come out, I'd still be going. I've always had a good tank, like, and they look good. So some of these PTs, I'm like, there's no fucking way. Like they're beach gymmers, like they look good and they're taking plenty of gear. And
you can look good or you can be you can be fit and look good as well. But
it'd be hard to carry some of that muscle mass if you were proper endurance fit, because you know what I mean. There's no in between.
Yeah,
Anthony Joshua blows out because he's too much muscle mass. Like there's no like you look at Tyson Fury, look at Anthony Joshua, and then you're like, he's going to go to the depths in 12.
No.
He isn't, and it doesn't look right. But that's
the way it is.
Because I was like, I'd love to see some of these PTs. I bet you're not fucking fit at all.
But I like, and that's even whenever I was in PF, so it was to see, and we run a selection course, and every bloke that was down on the corridor done the tabs with the students. So like that was the standard to pass, and it was nails at the time. But see, whenever you were in, that was the standard you had to stay at. So it wasn't just like pass and you do no more, and it was always like, you're a leader, you lead from the front. And like the same in the recon, like I was running, we run up the mountain and I was there in front, and that's the way. And I do every session in the gym. So the first kind of Monday, Wednesday, and a Friday morning for our first session, 5:00 in the morning, I'm on that floor and I'm doing it with the blokes that are in at 5:00, the women and the thing.
Yeah.
And it was just like, you know what I mean? We're doing the same stuff as you are. We're not asking you to do something that we're not doing, and that's the way we see it.
Well, you know, actually,
lead by example.
I'm going to be honest too. I'm glad actually you did discuss. Sometimes people want to plug and they want to do things to come on here, but I'm glad because it does sound everyone is doing everything the same, and it does sound like you're trying to do something different. Yeah. Definitely does, because we have ripped the fucking PTs.
Funny, the first time I went looking at your podcast, like, PTs are fucked. I was like, here we go. I was like, oh, I can't wait to go on that show.
But it actually
well,
is.
whenever you start listening, like that's
and
there is people out there doing it, but that there, like, I can guarantee you they done an online course.
But what I'm saying is it is actually refreshing because it is different and it sounds different. It sounds fun and thing. So no, fair play to you. And look, Sammy, I want to thank you for coming on because I actually really enjoyed it, and you're a crazy bastard. I'll let you on or whatever.
No, I'm good. Hey, Sammy, I really enjoyed it. Same. We were sitting this morning and we're like, look, we've had a couple of people from Army military. And then you're thinking, is it going to be the same? It was totally different. And every guest that we've had on, we've learned something from them. And I've learned something from you as well. Yeah. And it's just class to learn something new about what you were doing in the military and everything. Like, it was class.
And there's not many people from Northern Ireland anyway that's actually been.
You know, Pathfinder. But I'm going to tell you this here. So anybody in a military background will actually proper appreciate the level of what you've went to.
Some of them might not even know what they are or what they've done.
As a clandestine group. But
you know,
but the thing about it is the amount of ones around here is like, yeah, as an army. And then you get talking to them and you find out they maybe didn't even do the 6 weeks. But you know what I'm talking about? The amount of ones around here, yeah, I was out in the army giving them a big bravado, and then you find out they didn't do fuck all.
There's so many, like as they call them, Walter Middies, and you catch them out all the time. And two of the biggest things, the parachute regiment and the Pathfinders, are like, they're getting caught all the time. There's a page where they catch people and they put them up, and they have so many that come and repent their sins and stuff. And it's like, well, I was actually in that. You know what I mean? I'm not a Walter Mitty. I'm on record for being in, so I can talk about it. I'm not going to get stung. You know what I mean?
Well, hey, Sammy, thanks very much. That was a good crack.
Thank you.
Cheers, Sammy. Thank you.
Cheers. Appreciate it.